Well, good evening and welcome into a Tuesday edition of KC Sports Tonight. I'm Mark Poulose, joined by Sports Director Marleah Campbell here on a rainy Tuesday afternoon here in Kansas City. We have three great topics to talk about today. Two of them with the Royals, one of them with KU basketball, but we're going to start with a topic on everybody's mind today, Marleah. It is the debut of Royals top prospect Jac Caglianone. I have some stats to run through. Making his first MLB appearance tonight, he's going to be debuting in the 6th hole as the designated hitter for the Royals tonight against the St. Louis Cardinals, and Cags has just dominated the minor leagues so far this season. In the minors, he's batted .322 with 15 homers and 56 RBI in 50 games, which is the most in all of American professional baseball. This guy is generating runs. He's drawing comparisons to Shohei Ohtani and Aaron Judge with his power. Marleah, I'm going to start here with a dream. Let's say Cags turns into a superstar. Does that make the Royals World Series contenders with their pitching, with Bobby Witt Jr., and then with Cags?
Love the optimism. It certainly gets them closer to that, right? The Achilles heel of this team has been the offense. I mean, they have one of the worst offenses in baseball right now and still have a winning record and are in the middle of the pack in the division, staying on the heels of the Guardians and the Twins, a little bit of arm distance reach out of first place with the Tigers, especially this weekend. But this move came kind of unexpected. Mark, you and I were talking to JJ Piccolo in the dugout on Monday, a week and a day ago, and I don't know the impression you got out of that conversation, but to me it was like, pump the brakes. We're going to give this guy time in the minors. He mentioned two things. One, you don't want to bring up a guy too quickly. We want to give him time. He even said it's not like we're going to send him up to AAA Omaha and then a week later say, you're coming to the big leagues. And that's kind of what they did. It was 2 weeks later, but that's kind of what they did.
Well, 1 week. It was 2 weeks. 2 good weeks in Omaha.
Yeah. And which at the time, I don't think he anticipated that quick of a move. And then two, he said, you don't want to bring up a guy like that when the team's not playing well, when the offense is stalling. Well, that also didn't come to fruition, and it didn't take long. I mean, this weekend, Royals scored 1 run in 2 games. The finals were 1-0, 1-0, 1-1, lost 1. But back to your original point, the fact that this team is, 1, still in games, 2, has a winning record, and has one of the worst offenses in baseball is kind of the glass half full way to look at it is, okay, well, if you resolve this problem and plug this hole, you really, answer a big question here. And I think it's the Achilles heel of this team. I think it's the solution. I think it's a lot of pressure to put on a young guy, especially with his debut tonight. But clearly the Royals have confidence in him to make a difference and to make a difference right now. So I'm excited for tonight. We got this news late Sunday. So yesterday was kind of that, I wish they had a game tonight. But Royals fans aren't going to have to wait long. And man, his first at-bat's coming up in a little over an hour.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up those comments by JJ Piccolo, because to me this is a little bit of a perplexing move for them to call him up right after the general manager says, hey, we're going to kind of keep him in AAA and kind of see what he does, because he was like, AAA pitchers can stick to the game plan better. And then a couple days later, here he is in Kansas City. I really wonder if this weekend series against the first-place Detroit Tigers did have a lot to do with that, because you mentioned those back-to-back 1-0 games, and you just really felt the Royals were not putting their best foot forward. They were not putting the best team possible out there to succeed. And when you're going up against the Tigers, I know we're a little bit more than a third of the way through the season, but you got to win these games. Like, you cannot be 8.5 games out of first place. But another reason I think that is perplexing is a lot of people thought they might bring up Cags later in the summer, later in June, because it would keep him in Kansas City potentially longer or keep his arbitration number down. It was a little bit, people were saying the Royals were manipulating his service time to keep him here or his cost control here in Kansas City. But the Royals, they're not doing that. They're saying, all right, let's go, let's win now. And this is, they have the worst offense in the American League. They've only hit 34 homers this entire season. It's just an exciting time to watch Jac Caglianone. But I think Royals fans also, we need to kind of temper some expectations here in Kansas City, because this is a move so many people have clamored for. They've been back since early May. Call up Cags, call up Cags. Well, guess what, guys? The Royals have called up Jac Caglianone. So, Marleah, maybe my next question here is, what do you think maybe will be a realistic expectation here for Cags? Like, do you think he could carry the team to the playoffs, or do we just need him to be another good bat in the lineup?
Yeah, you certainly hope so. And the Royals right now are I think they just slid out of the wild card spot, but they're certainly close. They're within a game or two. So that's not out of the picture. Again, with, as you mentioned, having one of the worst offenses in the league and the worst in the American League, or excuse me, in the in the American League, in the majors. So again, it seems like the solution. You have a couple advantages for Jac Caglianone coming up at this time. One, he is on the road. You're in St. Louis for a couple games. quick road trip, and then you're taking on the White Sox on the road, who are terrible, so maybe that's an opportunity to get your footing. But then mark your calendars for a week from today, because Royals hosting the Yankees. It's going to be his home debut. We're anticipating a near sellout. Should be pretty close, because I know a lot of people want to see him in person, but allows him to get his feet under him this week, and hopefully, get a few hits and get the jitters out before you come home and take on a really good Yankees team. But I think you look at this weekend. I think when you look at the comments from Piccolo on Monday, and then you look what the Royals did over the next couple of days, it kind of, he used the phrase in that presser, which was, those guys, we tell the guys in the minors to barge down the door and don't really give us a choice but to call you up. And I think Caglianone did that with, A, the numbers he was putting up in the minors, and B, what independently the Royals were doing on their own. And I think that, weekend of one combined run, 9 hits on Sunday, don't bring any of them home. It kind of felt like, okay, we have this guy in AAA. He's 3 hours down the road. He could be our saving grace. Why are we not calling him up at this point? So should be an interesting week. I'm excited to see what he does tonight. I guess I would caution Royals fans, if he doesn't do great today, don't hit the panic button, because he has some time to kind of get his feet under him here. But and doing it now, you get a little bit more experience heading into the real stretch of the season when we get into early August into September, because this is looking like the Royals are what we're going to be doing last year, where we're circling a magic number. We're looking at the big series in the AL Central. We're going game by game for these guys to squeeze into the playoffs. So I'm glad they made the move now. I was surprised. I know, Mark, you and I both talked about on Sunday night. We got the notification and we were like, well, what? And not even maybe a week prior to that, I would have guessed, he's coming up soon. But really that conversation that we keep referencing made me think, okay, this is going to be a while. They're tempering expectations. They're hearing the chatter and they're saying not yet. But Royals kind of forced their hand this week, that's for sure.
Well, I know Jac Caglianone certainly forced the hand, but just hearing Piccolo make those comments last week, this made me kind of think that this might have come from the owner, John Sherman, because Piccolo, he literally said that it's not one good week in AAA and we're going to bring him up to the majors. Like, he laid out the time plan.
And I don't think he meant 2 weeks.
Yeah. He laid out the plan, and then they just did not follow that. Who's in charge of JJ Piccolo? Who's his boss? John Sherman. I think John Sherman might have seen back-to-back 1-0 games and just been like, all right, we're not doing this anymore. I'm the owner. I'm going to pay this guy. Well, maybe that's happened. Maybe it didn't, but that's speculation.
And the Royals have shown a lot that, and especially John Sherman and kind of the front office, that they want to make moves to win right now. We've seen them put out the money over the course of the last 2 offenses, particularly 2 years ago with the Bobby Witt Jr. move, bringing in Seth Lugo. So they're not, we'll build this up and we'll win later. It's let's win right now. And you have a guy in Omaha that can help you win right now.
And I think also one more thing on this Cags point that Royals fans need to realize is this might be the most injection of talent that the team sees for many, many years. I don't think they're going to sign a bat that will be able to impact the team like Jac Caglianone will. And if they do add another player that would be of Cags' talent, it would probably come in a trade where the Royals would have to get rid of an asset to bring in that new talent. So, Jac Caglianone, this is the biggest influx of talent the Royals will have for a very long time. And he could be a superstar pairing with Bobby Witt Jr., so a lot of things to dream about.
Well, you're hearing a lot of chatter about it right now, and I think for a good reason, which is this is the highest rated prospect since Bobby Witt Jr., who's doing pretty well for himself, and he's the fastest position player to be called up from the minors to the big leagues from being drafted since Bo Jackson in 1986. So this is a historic kind of move, a historic day for the Royals. And Gabe mentioned yesterday kind of the Mahomes Kelsey combo. You can dream a little bit and say maybe the Bobby Witt Jr. Caglianone combo is the Royals duo of the future. But starts today, so pretty exciting. I think there's a lot of kind of hubbub and conversation and online conversation about him, and it's for good reason, because this could be a franchise-altering era, I think, and a move that we remember for a long time.
And that leads us right into our next point, because he's being added to a team that's 31-29. They're above average. They're playing pretty good baseball, but right now they are 8.5 games in the division. We're talking about the Royals' big picture. Marleah touched on this earlier tonight. They're starting a 6-game road trip, 3 on the road at St. Louis and 3 on the road at the Chicago White Sox. Chris Bubich, he was named the AL Pitcher of the Month, and something I didn't know, he's the only 10th pitcher in Royals franchise history to ever win that award.
Isn't that wild? I saw that today too, and I was like, surely that can't be right. But yeah, because you think those kind of monthly awards come all the time, but yeah, pretty rare. The first since Cole Reagan's, I think, back in 2023.
No, incredible. And I mean, Bubic has been phenomenal. He led the AL in the month of May with a .56 ERA in 5 starts. He held opposing hitters to 182 batting average. He leads the MLB in ERA at 1.43 for the entire season. So Chris Bubic, shout out to you. But Marleah, here we go. A 6-game road trip. The Royals 8.5 games out of first place. For me, I kind of think they need to go 4-2, maybe 5-1, because this team, for me, it feels like they're spinning the mud. What do you want to see out of this road trip?
Yeah, well, quick backtrack to Bubic, which is he had tied a career high out with 8 strikeouts on Sunday, had an incredible game outside of 1 wild pitch, and still picked up a loss. So that, again, speaks to the Royals offense, not giving their pitchers a lot of help, who are playing really, really well. But onto this road trip, yeah, I think you have to sweep the White Sox. They're 20.5, at least at last check on Sunday, games out of first place in the division. It's kind of like the Rockies. It's not like the Rockies. The Rockies are historically bad. They're 9-59,
but the White Sox are bad. I know what you're saying.
The White Sox are bad. And again, a good time to call up Caglianone and maybe get him a little bit of confidence and pick up some wins. But they're at the point, they're not in a position where they can lose games against teams like that. So I think you pick up a win or 2 in St. Louis, and then you go and sweep the White Sox. You come back home with a lot of momentum against a really good Yankees team. But this is an important road trip because the Royals haven't done themselves any favors by putting them in a favorable spot. They're 4th in the division. Yes, they are very close in that 2nd and 3rd place spot, but 1 game out of the wild card positioning. Yes, we're not even to the All-Star break yet, but you can't keep this pace, obviously, and get to where you want to be. So win the games you're expected to win, and certainly that would apply to at least the back half of this week.
And we already are seeing some lineup changes today. We know Cags is in there, but Jonathan India is back at playing second base. Michael Massey out of the lineup. So the Royals, I saw Salvi move down to the 5 spot. I think Maikel Garcia is batting 3rd or 4th, somewhere in there with Vinny. So
yeah.
The Royals, they have admitted that what they have done so far this year hasn't worked out the way that they have wanted to, and they have been making changes. And I think as a Royals fan, that has to be something that gets you really optimistic, because they could sit here and they could have waited till July to bring up Jac Caglianone. They could have waited they could have kept Hunter Renfroe on the team. They could have kept MJ Melendez in the big leagues, and these are all moves that they made in an effort to become a better team this year. So for the Royals, I think things are looking up. But with the addition of Jac Caglianone, I mean, this is it. This is the big addition I think the team's going to make this year. So we're going to have to see if this really boosts the club. Anything else we missed there, Marleah?
I think they'll be pretty active at the trade deadline is the only other thing I would add in there. So potential for another big bat to be heading here to Kansas City. But nope. I think we covered it. Should be a big
right
series
along those
here.
lines, the Royals could be trading a starting pitcher. I know they signed a veteran, Rich Hill, to a minor league deal. He started the other day in Omaha, so that could maybe, if he puts together some good minor league starts, there could be, because the Royals have good starting pitching, and we know they need help on offense, and they definitely need some help on the base paths, because they've just been getting out there for, too many times caught stealing.
Yeah.
But that's a story for another day. We'll see how they do tonight against St. Louis, and we'll have a recap of Cags' debut and also the game coming up tonight at 10. And then our last topic of conversation actually has to do with college basketball. Not a lot of college basketball talk in June, but today KU introduced Jacque Vaughn, the former player and NBA head coach, as one of Bill Self's assistants. He's going to take Norm Roberts' place on the staff. Vaughn, it was kind of an interesting story about how he and Self kind of got to this agreement where Vaughn's coming here to Kansas. Self today said he called Vaughn kind of out of the blue, and he didn't know how Jacque would respond to maybe asking if he wants to come back to the college level. Jacque said took a little while to think about it. He had to ask his boss, his wife, who is a Jayhawk alum apparently, and she kind of gave the blessing on this. So Jacque reached back out to Coach Self, and then all of a sudden here we are. Jacque Vaughn is back here at Kansas. So Jacque Vaughn, an NBA head coach on the college sidelines. Marleah, you played college basketball. You are a basketball expert. How do you think Jacque Vaughn is going to impact the KU program, just with his coaching, and then also just with the new era, NIL, paying all these players? It's kind of like a pro game.
Well, this is huge for so many reasons. One, because Norm Roberts is a big loss. I mean, he's been a staple on the sideline for the past decade plus. And by bringing Vaughn in, KU has, quote-unquote, struggled in recent years. You say that for a team that, has been to the NCAA tournament. But this year, knocked out of the first round. And just haven't really got on board with, I think, the new era of NIL and the transfer portal. They've struggled. This is a team that historically brings in guys and develops them over 4 years and largely plays juniors and seniors who have been in the program for 3 to 4 years with a red shirt. And that's just not how college basketball works anymore. I mean, guys leave. They find new spots where they can play right now, for better or for worse. But So having a guy like this who has NBA experience, who is, you know, very much on the forefront of the modern era of basketball, I guess you could say, is huge. And anytime you can get a guy whose jersey is hanging in the rafters when you look up at practice certainly brings a respect element. And yeah, I mean, I think it's a big move for Kansas, similar to what we were talking about with the Royals. And I say this again with the asterisk of KU has been to the NCAA tournament for how many straight years now?
They're blue blood. Like, yeah, they are.
It's, if you don't count that year that was eliminated, it's the longest streak in NCAA basketball right now. But by KU standards, and I think Jayhawk fans and their standards really haven't had that deep run since that 2022 run. So similar to as the Royals, as I was saying a second ago, if things aren't working, you need a change. And, you know, this is a big move, and certainly a lot of name power to it, and hopefully it sparks some new energy into this program and shifts a gear that we haven't seen just yet.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what it is. I think it is Bill Self trying to adapt to the modern game, and this really is an outside-the-box hire, but when you really start to break it down, it really makes a lot of sense because he obviously has spent all that time in Kansas, but think about some of the NBA. The NBA has changed dramatically in the last 10 to 15 years, and Jacque Vaughn has been there at the forefront of that. He was an assistant coach under Greg Popovich in San Antonio. He helped coach Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving in Brooklyn. I mean, Bill Self said this is a guy that's going to add instant credibility to the Kansas staff when they're talking to those recruits, maybe a player in the future like Darren Peterson who wants to go #1 overall. Like, hey, we have a guy on our staff who literally coached some of the best players to ever play the game, and that's kind of a new thing that Jacque is going to bring. But I was actually kind of talking about this with Greg Daly the other day, our social media and web manager, talking about this. He said, and this did not occur to me, but he said maybe if things go, if Self exits the game here in a couple of years, that Jacque Vaughn could be a coach in waiting. Marleah, what are your kind of thoughts on that? That thought had not occurred to me, but when you start drawing it up, it seems to make some sense.
Yeah, certainly has the resume, and I think from a coaching standpoint, he does inject that energy of developing guys who you haven't had them since the beginning of their playing career. You don't know how long you'll have them with, you know, contracts and things. It's college basketball is kind of adopting that. I would be shocked if they don't adopt some kind of contract style in the next couple of years. At least selfishly, I would hope so. And Vaughn is used to that. I mean, Self is kind of an old school guy who's had a lot of success on the 4-year model. So I think it's a great move for adapting to the current style of the game. And as you said, a lot of folks, I would argue everyone who goes to Kansas has NBA dreams. You're not at the blue blood level if you don't. And so Vaughn can at least sell the insight that he has, if not the connections, and certainly knowing what NBA teams want out of a guy and developing that talent. So not one negative with this move. I think it's huge for Kansas, and excited to see this new revamped roster again in 2025.
Yeah, I think it's pretty safe to say that KU might have the top assistant in all of college basketball if you just stack up resumes.
It's hard to find a different resume that would stack above it, yeah.
But speaking about this team, just quickly here to close, Self, he was asked at the end of today's presser just about this year's upcoming team with Darren Peterson, all those other guys coming in. He said this year's team is quicker, more athletic, and longer than last year. Marleah, when you just hear those words, quicker, more athletic, and longer, that seems pretty positive for KU, would you think?
Yeah, I almost am like, So, like, this, you're always going to have athletes at Kansas. You don't make it to that level if you don't. And yes, there are pros to being more athletic, quicker, longer. I think you need cohesiveness, and I think that's what the team lacked last year. There was no lack of talent when you factor in, you know, Hunter Dickinson, all the guys on that roster. They just never really found a groove. I mean, it was a bunch of individually talented guys in my eyes that were playing on islands. And I think that was a lot of the criticism around that team. I don't think there was any point of saying, man, we're too slow. Or, you know, to me, it was never an athleticism problem. So I'm more interested in how quickly this team can get through what has essentially become a training camp of fall now for college basketball teams to get on the same page and to gel as a unit, because to me that was the missing piece of last year's team. I didn't think it was talent.
Well, here we go. We're going to see Darren Peterson. They asked about him. Early reports, I mean, I think they only saw him play for about 1 hour, but they were very happy with what they saw.
Yeah.
And definitely seems like they're excited. And I believe they're also going to play Louisville in an exhibition coming up, so that'll be something to look out for coming up this year. But Jac Caglianone making his Major League debut. That's the big story today. Marleah, anything else we left out there?
No, just if you want to listen to him talk ahead of his first big leagues game, Mark, I know you got sound from him running at 6 o'clock on our news.
Yeah, there he is right there at Busch Stadium. You want to hear Cags, tune in tonight about 6:20 p.m. We'll have that. But that's a look at KC Sports Tonight here on this Tuesday. Big day here in Kansas City. Jac Caglianone's Major League debut. We'll have a full recap coming up tonight at 10. Thanks, guys.